So Bill did a really good job of talking about one of our programs. The agroterrorism program is one that has taken great priority recently, especially in the last couple of years. But as you can expect and understand, agroterrorism is one program that we're dealing with. In terms of WMD, specifically, we're talking also about the chemical sector, we're talking about the rad sector, we're talking about radiological isotopes being used inside of hospitals and universities. We're talking about shipping and transportation, access to the corridor in terms of the train system, Newark Liberty Airport, et cetera, et cetera. So we cover a lot of different programs. As you understand, all of those require a lot of resources and a lot of participation from the ground up, from the state and local level and on up, because there are only about 300 of us in terms of agents here in the state of New Jersey. We happen to be resource intensive because we do have Philadelphia, New York, very close by, but there are only 300. So we rely very heavily upon folks in your position, folks in the public safety sector, response organizations, et cetera, epidemiologists, public health, to assist us with our investigations and with just notification, general awareness of what's going on in the state. So why am I here? Why does the FBI, I mean, everybody understands, right, FBI does terrorism, but really why does the FBI do terrorism? Because the president said so, or at least several previous presidents. Going back to President Clinton, presidential directive, PPDs is what they were called, presidential priority, actually PPDs, presidential decision directives, were the baseline for what we use for our where we get our mission statement, where we get our orders, marching orders. Under President Bush, those were changed to HSPDs, Homeland Security Presidential Directives, then they became NSPDs, the other way around, National Security Presidential Directives, NSPD, then Homeland Security Presidential Directive, HSPD. And I expect here, not too long, that President Obama is going to change that. I think they're actually going to be PPDs, Presidential Priority Directives. Essentially, they all said the same thing. There are 3 to 4 to 5 that we were concerned about. There are 20-some in general to protect that deal with all kinds of sectors, everything from cybercrime to healthcare, etc. The ones that we're concerned about primarily are listed 4 or 5. You can see them up here on the boards. Mostly some are about terrorism, some specifically about WMD. The one that we like to refer to very heavily is HSPD 5. HSPD 5, let me see, show of hands, who's taken NIMS training or ICS training? Raise them high, come on. Very nice, okay, that's a large part of this group. For those of you who've taken your NIMS training or your ICS training, this will hopefully be familiar to you. HSPD 5 is the one that sets out, per President Bush, an integrated top-to-bottom response to a national incident. You can see here, hopefully, that it says, a single comprehensive approach to domestic incidents at all levels of government. So that's the big marching order. That's the one that says, okay, hey, you guys got to get out there, you got to get a system, you got to put it in place, and we want all the way from the local organization, all the way to the federal government, and all the federal partners to have one coordinated effort. Important is that it divided the job into 2 basic functions: Homeland Security, often operating down through FEMA, then down through the local response organizations, the local fire departments, police departments, etc., are responsible for what we consider to be consequence management, responding to, and more importantly, recovering from any incident. That's one side of the house. The other side of the house is the side that I sit on, which is through the Attorney General, basically down through mostly the FBI. We're responsible for, amongst other things, investigating terrorist acts, terrorist threats, and detecting, preventing, preempting, disrupting terrorist attacks, etc. All right, so that's where we get our marching order. Important, that is basically the legal basis for National Response Framework, formerly National Response Plan. So those of you who took your NIMS, this is where it comes from. Now there's terrorism annex. Is there an agriculture annex? There is. There's a separate agro-terrorism annex, agriculture annex. There's also one for bio events that is non-specific to terrorist events. We're talking about any disease outbreak. But there's a terrorism annex. And the annexes basically lay out the actual plan as it's supposed to happen. That all gets its legs back going to HSPD 5. For those who are really interested, and you want to read up on the National Response Framework, there is a website you can go to. It's actually a very nice interactive website. Check it out as a brush up for your NIMS training. So, this is kind of a statement, but I like to use it when I'm talking to people because of years and years of what I consider misrepresentation. Following a terrorist attack, the response of the Bureau, their priority is life safety, but the mission is not. And I want you to take a second to think about that. Like I said, years of misrepresentation by Hollywood has basically led most of the people, a lot in the public safety sector, to have this impression that when something happens, the Bureau rides in on its white horse or its big convoy of black Suburbans and it takes over everything from top to bottom. I show up in my suit and I say, "Hi, I'm the FBI and I'm in charge." That is really decidedly untrue. Now, I will caveat by going back and saying part of that mission statement is to detect, deter, prevent. So obviously that's life-saving. All right, then that part is my mission. But when an event actually occurs, when something actually happens, when a building gets knocked down or something goes bang, the response efforts, the security efforts, the life safety efforts, everything from extrication, patient packaging, treatment transport, triage treatment and transport, firefighting operations, hazmat operations, all of that is the responsibility of those organizations operating under the consequence management, the FEMA side of the house, going down to your local departments of fire department, police department, EMS services, etc. And that's with regard to an overt, as Bill talked about, overt actions and overt action. If we're talking about a covert action, those same organizations are going to be your folks. Because in a covert action, although we talk mostly about, like, hey, something going bang and buildings getting knocked down, generally speaking, the covert action is going to start with an epidemiological investigation. It's going to start with an environmental health investigation. It's going to start with people showing up at ERs and being sick. And it's going to go through its natural trend until it gets to a point where somebody decidedly says, hey, this is probably something a little out of the ordinary, we should involve the FBI. Now, as part of the outreach programs that we talked to about, as Bill has mentioned, is we're trying to get out to these people, we're trying to get you to say, hey, maybe we should involve the FBI or the FDA or one of the law enforcement agencies earlier on in the process, so there's less ground to cover and we don't have duplicative efforts. But it's important for everybody to understand, because I really do like to break that misnomer, is that it's important for people to understand that the FBI has a very specific job when it comes to terrorism events. It's the investigation after an action has happened. It's the investigation of that action, identifying a perpetrator, taking that person to justice and making sure it doesn't happen again. And we, as the leading federal investigation in that, as declared by HSPD 5, are responsible for organizing the local, state and local agencies and our federal partners, including FDA, EPA, etc. And we cover that side of it. But the incident commander in an incident where something goes bang, or in case of a covert incident where you're talking about an epidemiological investigation or environmental health investigation, your folks would still do your work. We would hopefully do it jointly with you or in concert with you with lots of coordination. But we're not going to run that portion